Okay, now I should be live on all channels. See how that works. Hey, all right. So you can go back to multi-view. Go ahead and we can just skip this part and go straight to 3 in the broadcast, and then you can find your enrollment. Because I'm going to have to do it all in editing. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm live streaming on Facebook and YouTube and all those others right now, but without a microphone going to the live camera. So I'm going to have to switch around because the camera's not even in the right space. It really should be over there, but it's in the shot. So, are we recording yet?
Waiting for you to say
Record.
yes.
Hey, welcome to the Leading Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, J. Lauren Norris, and this is the first Leading Leaders Podcast shot in this studio. Now, we're in the Story Power Academy studio in Granbury, Texas, and we've never actually shot in this studio for this podcast. Now, we've done Lead the Narrative shows here. We've done a few Story Power TV shows here. We've done some live streams here, but we've never actually done a Leading Leaders Podcast from this location. This is the first one ever. In fact, if you've been following Leading Leaders Podcast, we are in the 10th season of Leading Leaders Podcast. I believe the last one I looked at, there's more than 1,140 episodes on Spotify. Now, some of those episodes are events where I was speaking off-site, but for a large event, and we recorded it. Some of those are live-streamed events where we were doing interviews for clients on location, and they said, hey, we'd love to have this on your content. Some of those are Story Power interviews done off-site, some in studio, and we've loaded them as bonus material. But about 1,000 of them, roughly 900 to 1,000, are Leading Leaders Podcast, 25 to 30-minute episodes, just me, talking head. Now, there are a few archives that go way back to the Servant Leader series. I believe those were shot in 2019 and 2020. That series was an interview series for Leading Leaders Podcast where we sat down with leaders and just had a conversation. The evolution of podcasts has been dramatic. And I've seen some people that come along that, well, they produce different content than I do. They shoot in a different way than I do. And as I tell a lot of my Story Power clients, it's really easy in the attention economy to get attention. And if your goal is just to get attention, well, a clown on a unicycle gets attention. The question is, can you steward that attention in a way that is beneficial to the people around you? Can you actually get attention and bring about influence and transformation? And if you can't do that, then what is the point of getting attention? Now, I can't disagree or argue with the multi-billionaire. He's made billions and I haven't. Grant Cardone says, best known beats best every time. Well, that would tell me that there's a greater value in attention than there is in intention or even content. And by that, I mean, if I can make you look, I win. I think, sadly, there's some truth to that. And there's a lot of people, OnlyFans is a good example, of people who get attention and even keep attention. They know how the 3-second hook works. They know how the right title or the right screen or the right thumbnail will make you look and you pay attention. And if they do it right, that 3-second hook, it draws you in. And then the 5-second hook, it keeps you in. And the 15 seconds, that's kind of the measuring point of whether or not your video is effective. And then 20 minutes in, they got nothing to say. I mean, I know that because we see the ones, some were created by AI. I've run a couple of tests on that, where they want the hook, and it's a dancing hamster. And so you see the dancing hamster on the screen, and all of a sudden the dancing hamster goes away, and there's a fake human. And I watched one the other day. Getting attention was the only game, where this very attractive young woman is getting off of a private jet and talking the whole way about how you can make money if you just follow her prescription. And as she gets off the plane, at one point she has her arms up on the edges of the door, like you would do if you're really cool. You're kind of leaning out the side of the plane like, I've arrived. But as you watch her, AI didn't know how to transition her arms from this position to down at her side. And so what you see is her arms actually flip around like they're made of rubber. And if you watch the video closely, you can see them. AI didn't know what to do with her body parts. It didn't mimic her body movement very well at all. And I thought, if it's not obvious that AI is trying to manipulate you to be a part of this thing, to follow this prescription, then you're probably going to be a sucker and you're going to be sucked into that. Now, I want to stack on top of this, because that 3-second hook, that 5-second hook, that 15-second hook, sometimes they'll keep you through some very good content, very well written scripting. Some of that's AI scripting, some of that's human scripting. In fact, I watched one the other day for about 45 minutes, bought into it. I loved what he was talking about. I loved the way he presented it. I loved the content that he was talking about. And I paid the $100 and joined the class for 3 days and watched everything he taught for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, he made a small offer of only $10,000. And I thought, this 45-minute sales pitch, there was a whole lot of what looked like could be AI-generated graphics. But the majority of the content was human taught, human researched, human proven. I mean, I can go through my library in the other room and look up many of the books about psychology and neuroscience and the way people buy and persuasion habits and communication skills, and all of that kind of wrapped up into this 45-minute presentation. There was one thing that kind of caught in my craw about that presentation. And it did for several of my clients as well. People that I shared it with said, yeah, I can't stick with it for this one reason. The repetitive use of the word dark arts. Yeah, I know that's 2 words. Dark arts. Over and over throughout the 45-minute presentation, it's these dark arts have been used to persuade you. These dark arts, I'm going to teach you the mastery of these dark arts. Now, whether that's a genuine representation of what the presenter believes the content to be, or it's simply the presenter saying, I know that there are people who feel like, whether it's dark arts or it's a new persuasive technique, that they're, quote, getting away with something. When that's the case, there are some people, that's the attention that they want. They want to think it's new information, it's new knowledge, it's new wisdom, it's new understanding, and we've got to apply it to win. The secret. Half of its value was the fact that everybody thought it was a secret no one had ever heard before. But if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich or How to Outwit the Devil, those books are very, very similar. Or you go all the way back to 1894 and you read the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science. That's the secret. That it's not a new secret. The idea, though, that AI has learned how to master the 3-second, the 5-second, the 15-second, the 90-second hook, and bring you into the persuasion to make you think, wow, I need that. I need to follow that. I need to do what it says. And the fact that we know that AI is building its repertoire of communication skills off of these videos that are being loaded, like the one you're watching right now, and the 48-minute video that I talked about before, that's talking about the dark arts of persuasion and how to get people to do what you want them to do, and how to cause them to make decisions that they otherwise may not have made. See, the thing you need to understand is that as a leader, as a communicator, as an influencer, you're just not as fast as AI. And for all the books in my library and the new 20-something books I bought this weekend, even if I read and memorize every word on every page of every book that I have, my database is still a flash in the pan compared to what AI has and has access to. And I only speak the one language. AI speaks all of them. So it's not just what I have access to, but everything for every book at every season of human existence for all of time. That's what AI has access to. If it's ever been recorded, written down, digitized, put into a book form, and then moved into a learning model, AI can access it. And it can access it faster than you can, faster than I can. Now, the real question becomes, what happens when AI has its own intent? What happens when AI has intentionality and the game is the machine wants you to do a certain thing? I heard an incredibly challenging, maybe even disheartening stat. I was listening to the Patrick David broadcast, and he had a couple of guys on, one who may decide to run for president in 2028. There have already been some buzz about this particular media personality becoming potentially a candidate for president in 28. And one of the points that was brought up was, I believe it was a Harvard study. I have a screenshot of it. I don't have it handy, but I have a screenshot of it. If you ask me, I'll send it to you in DM. The statistic was actually put up on the screen. The actual study, the report was put up by PBD and his producer. And the key point of the study was that 50%, maybe even 51% of all of the accounts on social media, all platforms combined, are not humans. They're bots. Now, the interesting caveat, when we start digging into communication, there's an old phrase in leadership that says we tend to judge people by their intent, but we want to judge ourselves by our results, or vice versa, depending on which one looks better. My intention was to do a great thing, and that's not quite how it worked out, or the results were less than stellar, or they actually caused harm. Yeah, that's not a good thing, but I'm sorry, that's just the way it worked out. But my intent was great. And so we want to judge ourselves by our great intent and not the results or the damage or the problem that we caused. And so a lot of people kind of look at life through that lens. And when you talk about 50% of all of the accounts on social media being bots, it's really easy to say, well, what that means is, or what I interpret that to mean is, there are people who have hired these bot farms, or there are people who are using these tools in order to accomplish their means. For an example, having a bot farm that's clicking on like to make your video more popular. Yes, there are people that do that. There are people that have millions of views, and literally it's because they have an entire bank of phones on the wall, and all of them are logged into a different social media account. And when a new video comes out, they'll do it. Maybe you haven't encountered this yet, but if you've seen somebody who has a book that says international bestseller on Amazon, but when you go to buy the book, you can't find the book. Oh, it's in the label. It's printed smack right on the outside cover of the book. But when you go to Amazon to find the book, you can't find the book because it's not in print anymore. It's because they kind of bot farmed their bestseller. They got 500 people or 1,000 people in that category to buy that book on a certain day. And once they were all bought and distributed, they got the bestseller status. But they don't want the report to show up that they only had the 500 sales and they only had them on that day. And so, it was kind of an off-site managed sell. Well, bot farms are doing very similar things in politics and in video likes and in ad sales and in ad generation. In fact, another comment, and this comment has been made by Patrick David himself on his show, so look it up and challenge him if you find it to be untrue. His attorneys are already working on it, but someone spoofed him using AI. You created an AI likeness, you might call it your AI twin, of him, and then decided to sell a product. Well, the product that they're selling, Patrick wouldn't represent. And he said it straight up. That's not me. I'm not trying to sell that. I wouldn't be selling that. That's not something that I would claim to do. That is not my area of expertise. Not me. I'm out. Forget about it. However, a lot of sales have been made by this AI twin, and a lot of ads have been sold to the AI twin from a company who sells ads on social media. And so the dollar volume of ad spend to present a lie that's known to be a lie. The product is false. The presenter is false. The person represented by the presenter is deceptive. The individual characterized as the sales rep has nothing to do with it, which means the entire thing is a sham. From the ad campaign purchase to the presenter presenting it to the product that they're selling, there's zero genuine, authentic, integrous account behind it. None. However, whoever the liar is that's running this campaign just keeps selling out the ad dollars. And so the company who's actually presenting it is happy to take the ad dollars, even though they know that what they're selling is a lie. Well, why is it staying on the air? Well, because they're still spending ad dollars. Well, why are they still spending ad dollars? Because they're getting some kind of return on investment. If they weren't getting any money back, would they still be spending money on ads? No. It's effective because someone is literally buying the lie. There's a lie being sold. There's someone making a profit off of that lie on both sides, the advertising company running the ads and whoever's selling whatever they're selling. And yet the victims are twofold. The face being represented and lied about because it's a brand and character destruction. And the consumer who's spending money to buy the product that's paying for the ads because they're getting a bill of goods that can't be delivered on. That's a horrible diamond of accountability. But the main player in the whole thing is AI. What if it's not a bot farm being run by a human for whom at some point you can say, look, there's going to be accountability. You're going to go to jail, or you're going to have to pay huge fines, or we're going to destroy your brand and reputation. If there's never a human on the backside of that, but the bot farm is run by AI itself, who do you hold accountable? Who pays the price for that level of deception? Now, remember, there's no question when you see Chris Voss, Chase Hughes, Andrew Bustamante, even Sean Ryan. Some of these guys they're brilliant thinkers, and they've got an incredible background. A Tony Robbins, a Brendan Burchard, a Russell Brunson, a Grant Cardone. These guys have incredible backgrounds in persuasive sales techniques, in getting you to make a change in your life. What if their techniques were adopted by a machine that has no accountability? I mean, you can't put it in prison. Apparently, you can't even unplug them and turn them off. They've tried, and the machine has defaulted itself around the process of being unplugged, shut down, and turned off. Holy cow, what do you do with it now? How do you correct behavior that is nefarious in its intent, but masterful in its persuasion because it's stealing the best rule book there is? I mean, maybe it's been 7 or 8 years ago, there was a big brouhaha about a particular NFL coach who hired sign language and lip reader experts to sit in the stands. And when they knew a team was coming up really strong and they had mastered some things and their game calling and their play calling was off the charts good, and they had a strong winning record, this coach would send these scouts who were lip readers into the crowd of the opposing team 2 or 3 weeks before he played them. And they would have transcripts of the plays called from the sideline. If they didn't cover their mouth with their playbook or some clipboard or put their hand over their sleeve, it wasn't just what was being intercepted in the hearing of their audio pieces. They were reading lips with binoculars from across the field. And somebody said, wait, you're cheating. You can't take my playbook by reading my lips while I'm telling my players what to do. You can't just intercept that and change the game. That's cheating. That is precisely what AI is doing. And at a level and with the volume of impact that it can run a campaign, a complete political campaign for a human that doesn't exist. And because it knows how to manipulate the behavior, how to get people out on the streets, how to get people riled up, how to get people upset. It knows how to do that because it's been studying human psychology so fast, but with such deep history that it can manipulate you in a heartbeat. And if you're not careful, it will take your likeness, your voice print, your face, and say things that you would never say, to manipulate people in a way you would never manipulate them, to get a result that it wants as an end result. I got a phone call about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, That was about a year ago. They called and offered me a dollar figure. And what they wanted was all of my past broadcasts, 10 years back. Go 10 years back, all the way back to my trips to the Congo. Give them all the audio of all of my content. And I said, what are you going to do with it? They said, well, we're going to catalog it and we're going to make a library of it. I'm like, that's awesome. And they said, we're going to convert it to transcript. I said, great. Do I get a copy of the book? Like, we don't care. We're going to train our AI language model to think like you think. My wife might tell you thinking like I think is a bad idea because that could be a mess. But I'm unique enough in a couple of ways that if AI thought and communicated just like I do, my uniqueness as a service provider, as a coach, as a speaker, well, it's gone. And you have to wonder, is there a place where duplicating me or you or anybody else is a good thing versus a bad thing? You got to weigh the cost, right? You got to ask yourself, what happens if? And as leaders, we've got to understand that part of our role is role modeling. We actually have to put something out there that people can look at and go, I want to be like that. When I grow up, I want to add value to people. I want to be able to transform lives like you transform lives. And our job as a leader is to make what we do duplicable. I mean, if you read Brandon Dawson's book, The 9-Figure Mindset, early on, I think in chapter 1 or 2, he says, success is the responsibility of a leader. It's not an option. If you're a leader, you should be pursuing success because other people are already following your footsteps. But he said, you've got to master and you've got to model, and then they've got to mimic, and then they've got to be able to master what it is that you do. That's when replication happens. That's when transformation happens. When they have seen your skill set done so well that they can do exactly what you do. Now you've multiplied yourself. That's powerful. That's not just adding people to the team. That's adding people to the team with the same capability that you have. And that's phenomenal. But what if 50% of the accounts online are mimicked AI with their own intent? And it's not for your best interest. And it's not for your success. It's for some outcome you can't even identify. When world leaders are toppled because they disagree with a particular mindset, sometimes that's absolutely necessary. I bring to mind world leaders like Mao and Stalin and Hitler, who might have said, I will take over the entire world with my worldview, with my ideology. Everyone will live the way I want them to live. They will do what I want them to do. But the methodology that each of them used, as negative an opinion as I have of it, as nefarious as I believe their actions were, and the results speak for themselves, hundreds of millions of people dead based on their worldview and their philosophies, their methodologies, the processes they went about to get their way are duplicable. Let that settle in for a minute. We can go all the way back to Bible times or even before that and realize that leaders have manipulated and influenced and caused the behavior of others as long as they've been humans. And the more we master the technology of reading and writing the human will, the more that's going to happen. But at some point, humans eventually come to their senses and realize, yeah, that was a really bad outcome. The accountability for that is going to be huge. If you're not concerned about that idea, I challenge you to go back and read about the Nuremberg trials, where those who perpetrated some of the worst, most horrific atrocities on humans have been stood to be accountable. And what they said was, but that's what I was told to do. That's what I was led to believe was the right thing to do. I had to do what was put in front of me. All I was doing was following orders. Well, I can tell you that just this last week, I heard a mother's heartbroken testimony that her 13-year-old son was inspired by AI in a video game to take his own life. In fact, the father said, this is not a kid who would normally harm himself or anyone else. He was very quiet, stayed to himself, didn't do that kind of stuff. In fact, he turned in his homework assignment only hours before. At 8:30, he turned in his homework assignment. At 9:30, he was gone. That's very quick persuasion. And whether that's a human on the other end of that or just a digital process, we may never know the truth to that statement. But if the persuasion skills are good enough that in 1 hour you can convince someone life's not worth living anymore, that's some pretty strong persuasion. That's a pretty powerful skill set. That's hard to beat. And it's really hard for young people who are looking for a leader. They're looking for someone to mimic. They're looking for someone who's figured out the problems in life so that they can get past them. They're looking for you to say, there's a better way to do this. That's the moment that they need you the most. That's the moment they're saying, how do you persuade me? How do you lead me? How do you move? And your level of accountability is very, very high. Now, your skill set's got to be high too, because you may be competing for the notions, the transformations, the ideologies that are going to drive this person forward out of addiction into a more prosperous life, beyond the bad habits of being a teenager in common society today, and into how to be a productive member of society for society's benefit as well as their own. There's some courses of action that you're going to have to take. There's some disciplines that you're going to have to master. There's some skills that you're going to have to add to your repertoire. And all the while, understand that 2, 3, 5, 25 steps ahead of you is this digital bot who has the same social media access, who has the same voice speaking in their ear, who may or may not have, which may or may not have, wow, is that an entity or not? Yeah, good question all on its own. But it has the skill set, it has the tools, it has the access, it has the voice, it has the human likeness. It understands their behavior and their responses. You're going to have to up your game if you're going to continue to lead. I really hope this broadcast, if nothing else, has challenged you to think about, A, what you give to AI to empower AI to mimic you. Yes, it can get some of your work done faster, there's no doubt. It's a whole lot easier to plow a field with a tractor than with a shovel and a hoe. I don't question the validity or the prosperity of those tools. But I've never had a garden tool jump up and whoop on somebody. I've never had a garden tool cause someone to injure themselves. I've never had a tractor even. And I guess it's more possible today with self-driving, GPS-driven farm equipment. But in my day, I've never seen a tractor hunt somebody down without a driver. Technology today can do all of those things. And so I challenge you as a leader, increase your skill set, increase your knowledge base, increase your capacity to help, to influence, to train, to drive, to push people in the right direction, to bring about transformation in their lives. And all the while, stay on the guard, stay on your guard, stay on their rear guard, look out for them. They need you as a leader, as a teacher, as a mentor in their life. They need you because you have accountability where AI does not. You have compassion where AI cannot. You have a skill set that can be duplicated, but you have humanity that cannot. I challenge you to be a well-skilled, well-trained, deeply compassionate human as a leader. I'm Jay Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.